Hi, everyone. It is 3 o'clock, so we are going to get started. Thank you for joining us for the second of 3 training webinars that EPA is hosting to prepare you for the recent changes to ODS reporting. Today's webinar is focused on preparing data for submission. My name is Emily Gala. I'm a contractor with ICF that has been supporting EPA's ODS reporting program for the past 10 years. Mike James and Catherine Sleesman are also on the line, but I'll be leading us through today's presentation. A few quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. It's to be available on EPA's website. All lines are currently muted. They will remain muted throughout the presentation. We encourage you to use the chat box to type in any questions that you have. And at the end of the presentation, I will answer everyone's questions to the best of my ability. As I mentioned, today's presentation is focused on preparing data for submission. I'll give a brief overview of our new reporting forms and then discuss how to navigate through the forms, how to enter data into the forms, how to save and export the data. I'll also briefly go over the submission requirements that go beyond the reporting forms itself, and also resubmissions. The information covered in this presentation is also available in our guidance document on preparing data for submission, which is available on EPA's website. So as many of you are aware, we recently updated our reporting forms for ODS reporting, and we've consolidated the forms into 16 Excel-based reporting forms. Retired some forms, as the Class 1 trades report. We've also consolidated forms such as the second party destruction and transformation reports that are no longer class specific. To locate the reporting forms, you can go to EPA's website and scroll down the page till you see the reporting forms header. There you'll see a table with all 16 reporting forms available for download. When you download a form and open it, you'll likely be prompted to enable macros. A macro is an automated input sequence that is used to make forms streamlined and efficient. To ensure that all the capabilities of the form are activated, you will need to enable macros. All of our forms have a version number that we use to track the different iterations of the forms. The version number is located in the Instructions tab of each form. It's important that you always use the most recent version of the form to ensure synchronization of the data with our tracking system. When you upload your reporting forms into CDX, CDX will check to ensure that you are using the most recent version of the form, and if you aren't, you may not be able to move forward with your submission. To navigate through the forms, we have a number of features. First, there are navigation buttons. These are blue arrows located on each tab within the form, and you can click on them to be taken directly to different sections of the form. Next are the navigation tabs. These are color-coded to help you navigate through the form. Our gray tabs contain instructions and other reference information. The blue tabs are where you'll actually enter data into the form. The red tabs include summary information, summarizing the data that you entered. Lastly, there are hyperlinks in some of the instruction text within the form that allow you to click on that text and again get taken directly to a different spot in the form. As I mentioned, our blue tabs are where you'll enter data into the form. Each section has instructions to help guide you in what data needs to be entered. There is also additional guidance in comment bubbles for each of the fields. In some cases, when you select a specific cell, another pop-up will be there that has additional guidance as well. The cells where you enter data are colored blue. In some cases, these cells have drop-down lists. We do ask that you use the drop-down list to enter your data and not copy and paste data into the cells. Our reference tabs in the form have the full list of valid options for our drop-downs if you do choose to copy and paste. But again, we highly recommend you use the drop-down feature instead, because if you don't have a valid entry in those fields, your report, you won't be able to complete the submission of your report. Data must be entered in all fields unless otherwise noted. In some cases, we know that you may not have data available to populate a field. In this case, please refer to the instructions. There are a few instances we give guidance to enter NA in those cases. Still will need to fill something in those fields. If you're reporting for a given quarter and have no activity data to report, we still request that you submit a report that has no activity data. This is to ensure that we have complete reporting for a given year. So if you report quarterly and you have 1 quarter or 2 quarters that have no activity data, we do ask you still submit a report. Unlike the previous version of our Excel forms, these forms do allow you to have no activity data. To fill out a no data report, you'll complete section 1 of the reporting form, navigate through all of the sections of the report, and select the Prepare Submission button. You will be prompted or asked to confirm that you have no activity data, and you'll just have to select yes, and then you can move forward with preparing your submission. Our new forms have a variety of features in them to help ensure the data you're entering is complete and accurate. In some cases, you won't be able to move to the next section of the form until you've completed the section you're in. So for example, in section 1, we have radio buttons to the right of the fields to help you see when you've completed a field with valid data. In sections that have transaction level data, at the end of the row, you may see a message indicating that the row is not complete if all fields have not been filled in. And then finally, when you enter data into an individual field, you may get a pop-up box if the data you entered is not valid. So for example, if you enter a date of import and the date you enter is not within the same quarter and year of the information you filled in section 1, you'll receive a pop-up saying that the data you entered is not valid and asking you to change it. Once you've filled out all of the data in the form, you'll then select the Prepare Submission button. This is a red button that is in the final section of each form. A pop-up box will appear to ask you to verify that the information you filled out is complete and accurate, and you'll select Yes. You will then be prompted to save a CSV file. A CSV file is required as part of your submission in addition to the Excel file. It gets automatically generated when you select the Prepare Submission button. You'll be prompted to find a location to save the file and select Save. The file that's generated also has a file name that is automatically populated, and we highly suggest that you don't edit that name. Once you've saved your file, you cannot modify the contents of your CSV file. We use this information to synchronize with our database, and if you modify the information, it could disrupt that synchronization. If you need to edit information after you have created your CSV file, you should instead open your Excel file, make the edits necessary, and then regenerate the CSV file. Once you've saved your CSV file, you'll then also be automatically prompted to save the completed Excel file. Again, the file name is automatically generated as part of this. You are welcome to change the file name, but we do encourage you to keep it to help you manage the files. You'll navigate to where you want to save the file on your computer and select Save. Now completed the first 2 items that are required of your submission, your Excel file and your CSV file. In some cases, depending on the reporting activity, you may also need to provide supplemental documentation. For example, this might include a destruction or transformation verification, a bill of lading, or an invoice. And again, this is dependent on your reporting activity. If you have questions about reporting requirements, I encourage you to look at the regulations at 40 CFR Part 82, Subpart A. Within our reporting forms, we also do try to note where we expect to see supplemental documentation if you report on certain activity. So I encourage you to look at those instructions within the form. If you do submit a report that does not include necessary documentation, we will consider it incomplete and request that you resubmit. The documentation you submit can be in any format, PDF, Word, Excel. It does not matter. If you do need to resubmit a report, you'll need to find the Excel version of the original submission, open that, and change in Section 1 submission type from original submission to resubmission or resubmittal. In some cases, you may not actually need to change anything else in your report. For example, if you're resubmitting because you did not have supplemental documentation that was required, you won't need to change anything else in your report. You still will need to change the submission type to resubmittal. Once you've revised the report, you'll then click the Prepare Submission button, save and export the data into your CSV file again. I will go into much more detail on resubmissions tomorrow during our webinar on submitting data in CDX. So for now, I won't go into any more detail there. A few potential questions you might have about resubmissions. If you need to resubmit a report for 2017 or prior, as a reminder, our new system is designed to only collect data starting 2018 reporting year. We do ask that you contact EPA directly to coordinate with us on how best to resubmit any data for previous reporting years. If you need to resubmit a 2018 report that was previously submitted using our old reporting forms, so likely a Q1 report, then again, we ask you to contact EPA directly. The old version of the reporting forms are not compatible with our new system, and so you won't be able to use those for resubmissions. But please contact us, and we will work together to find the best way to get data resubmitted. Some additional resources. Hopefully many of you attended or have listened to the webinar we hosted a few weeks ago on upcoming changes to ODS reporting, and then as well as the webinar we had yesterday on registering with CDX. These recordings will be available on EPA's website. The one on upcoming changes is available now. One we had yesterday will be available soon. The guidance documents on registering with CDX, preparing data for submission, and submitting data to EPA are also available on EPA's website. And then a last reminder that we're having another webinar tomorrow on submitting data through CDX, and a recording of this will be available on the website. That concludes today's presentation.